Most people will never make it, not because they lack talent, not because they weren't born into the right family, but because they delay, they wait, they overthink, they keep telling themselves they need more time, more preparation, more signs from the universe before they finally make a move. And I've seen it 100 times. Guys with all the potential in the world, stuck in their heads, stuck in comfort, stuck waiting for the stars to align. But here's the truth, no one's gonna tell you. Every second you spend getting ready is a second you're feeding weakness. You're lying to yourself. You're disguising fear as strategy. And no one's gonna call you out for it except me, because I've lived it. I've seen both sides. I know what it feels like to watch life pass by while you convince yourself that tomorrow is when it'll all begin. But tomorrow never comes for people who wait. This is the moment you stop planning and start executing. This is the moment you wake up. You're not behind. You're just not moving. And once you take that first step, everything changes.
Waiting's a lie disguised as preparation. There's something seductive about waiting. It feels productive. You convince yourself that you're not procrastinating. You're just preparing. You tell yourself you're being smart. You're planning, gathering knowledge, building a strategy. But deep down, if you're honest, you know the truth. You're hiding. You're dressing fear up in the mask of logic. And that's the most dangerous form of self-deception, because it feels justified. You scroll through videos, read more books, listen to more podcasts, hoping one more piece of information will make it click, will make it safe, will make it easy. But it won't, because it was never about information. It was always about courage. And waiting becomes this black hole you fall into, a comfortable darkness that keeps you still while time keeps moving. You think you're being smart by delaying. What you're really doing is dying slowly, while convincing yourself that progress is happening. There is no magical moment coming where you'll suddenly feel ready. That version of you, who's fearless, focused, unstoppable, he doesn't show up before you act. He shows up because you acted. The most dangerous part about waiting is that it whispers. It doesn't scream you're wasting time. It whispers, not yet. And you listen to it because it sounds reasonable. It sounds safe, and safety is addictive. But greatness isn't built in safety. Purpose isn't forged in comfort. Your dream will never come to life if it has to tiptoe around your excuses. Waiting becomes the drug for people afraid of the first hit of action. The people who win, who break through, who actually build something meaningful, they act not because they're fearless, but because they know fear is a compass. They take the first step when it's messy, unclear, even stupid, because they'd rather be wrong in motion than frozen in fake perfection. You're not lacking knowledge. You're not lacking resources. You're lacking action. And every second you tell yourself, I'm almost ready, you dig a deeper grave for the man you could have become. You don't need another course. You don't need another mentor. You need to do the work you've been avoiding while pretending to prepare for it. That's the truth. Nobody wants to say out loud. Most people who plan are just scared. Scared of being seen, trying. Scared of failing in public. Scared of confronting the gap between who they are and who they claim to be. But that confrontation is necessary. That's how you evolve. Not by thinking more, not by journaling more, but by stepping up, screwing up, and growing from it. Every second spent waiting is a second lost forever, and you'll never know what could have happened if you had just moved. That's the price you pay for hesitation. The kind of regret that doesn't scream either. It lingers. It eats at you when things get quiet. When you see someone doing what you always talked about doing. When you see someone living the life you swear you were meant for. That's when it hits you. You didn't lack potential. You lacked gut. The truth is, you don't need more time. You just need to stop lying to yourself. Preparation is important, yes, but if it never turns into execution, it's just fear in a fancy outfit. And the longer you wait, the heavier that first step becomes, until one day it feels impossible. So take it, not when you're ready, but before you're ready, because that's where your real power begins. Your fear of failure is louder than your hunger to succeed. This is the part nobody wants to admit. You say you want to win. You say you want freedom, success, abundance, whatever word makes you feel like you're chasing something big. But when it comes down to it, when it's time to actually do the things that will take you there, your actions expose you. You're not hungry enough. You're just scared. You've let fear turn into a dictator, and it runs your life with precision. You have a dream, yes, but the volume of your fear drowns out the sound of that dream. Every time you hesitate, every time you talk yourself out of doing the hard thing, Every time you look for the easier path, you prove it. You're more afraid of failing than you are desperate to succeed. You've fantasized about the win more than you've worked for it. You've obsessed over the outcome, but you've avoided the process. Because failure feels like death to your ego. It feels like proof that you're not enough. But that's the test. That's the exact reason why success tastes so sweet. Because it demands pain. And most people tap out before they ever get close. They want the reward without the risk, the win without the wounds. But that's not how life works. Every man you admire had to face that moment when fear stood in front of him and dared him to move anyway. And most don't. Most shrink. Most go back to the sidelines and tell themselves stories about timing, luck, or the system being unfair. But the truth is, they just didn't want it badly enough. Fear will always be louder than ambition, unless you train yourself to move anyway. That's what separates the elite. They're not immune to fear. They've just learned that fear is not a stop sign. It's a green light. It's a challenge. It's a test asking you, are you actually about this life? Or are you just another talker? And most people are talkers. They can give you the perfect plan, the cleanest routine, the smartest strategy. But when it's time to take the hit, to look stupid, to lose publicly, they vanish. Because their fear of failure isn't just loud. It's in control. It's running the show. And as long as fear is the director of your life, you will always play small roles. But here's what you have to realize. The fear you feel is not unique. Every high-level individual you admire has felt it. The only difference is, they moved through it. They didn't let it sit in the driver's seat. They stared at the possibility of failing, and still pressed forward. And you can do the same, but only if your desire becomes bigger than your fear. You have to get to a point where not doing it is more painful than failing at, where you're more terrified of living a small life than you are of making a mistake. Because until that switch happens, you'll keep self-sabotaging. You'll keep pulling back right when it gets real. You'll keep choosing comfort over calling, and you'll justify it every time. Your life will always reflect what you truly value. If safety is your highest value, you'll never build anything meaningful. But if growth, freedom, and purpose become your obsession, then fear becomes fuel. You stop seeing failure as humiliation, and start seeing it as tuition. You stop fearing losses, and start embracing lessons. Because you realize that the only way to fail is to not move at all. And when that realization hits, when your hunger finally outgrows your fear, that's when your life changes, not before.
Comfort is the real killer of ambition. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they're comfortable. Comfort is the enemy you think is your friend. It hugs you while it slowly suffocates your potential. It whispers, relax, you're doing fine, while it chains you to a life you don't even want. You start settling for less, not because you lack vision, but because you've made a habit out of choosing ease. You trade long-term greatness for short-term peace. That's the cost of comfort, and it's a cost that compounds. It begins small, sleeping in a bit longer, skipping that workout, delaying that decision, and before you know it, it becomes your identity. You start identifying as the guy who just needs more time, who's figuring it out, who's taking it slow. But you're not figuring anything out. You're hiding in routine. You're addicted to avoiding friction. And if you don't kill that pattern, it will kill every ounce of greatness you've got left. The sick part is that comfort feels earned. You convince yourself you've been working hard, and now you deserve to coast. You trick yourself into believing you've done enough for today. You'll say things like, at least I'm better than him, or I'm doing more than I used to, and use that as fuel to do less. But you weren't made for better than before. You were made to dominate. You were made to stretch so far beyond your own limits that even your past self wouldn't recognize you. That doesn't come from comfort. That comes from war. War with your laziness. War with your doubt. War with the voice in your head that keeps telling you to take it easy. You want to be extraordinary. You want to break the generational cycle of mediocrity. You better get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because here's the real trap. Comfort breeds fear. The more you settle, the more you shrink. You start protecting what you have instead of chasing what you want. You stop risking. You stop growing. You stop acting. And worst of all, you stop dreaming. Because dreaming hurts when you're unwilling to chase. And that's the worst kind of pain, the slow erosion of belief. You don't even notice it at first. But after enough years of choosing easy over right, that fire inside you, it flickers out until all you're left with is the memory of who you could have been. All because comfort kept winning. Every man who made something of himself had to declare war on comfort. Not once, not for a season, but daily. He made pain his partner. He walked headfirst into challenges because he understood one thing. Pressure creates power. Resistance builds resilience. And growth is never born in the womb of ease. If your life is too convenient, too smooth, too easy, it's a sign, a red flag. You've settled. And the only cure is discomfort. You have to force yourself back into the fire. You have to chase challenge, hunt adversity, pursue pressure. Not because you're a masochist, but because it's the only place where your next level lives. The life you want is on the other side of discomfort. The real you is on the other side of the pain you've been dodging. And if you ever want to meet him, you need to stop treating comfort like a reward and start treating it like a disease. Get addicted to the grind. Fall in love with being stretched. And when comfort comes knocking, don't even open the door. No one's coming to save you, and that's your greatest power. This is the harsh truth most people run from. No one's coming. No mentor, no friend, no millionaire with a check, no perfect algorithm, no rescue plan. No one is going to show up one day and say, I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Here's the roadmap. Here's the permission. Here's the resources. Let me carry you. That doesn't exist. And if you're waiting for it, you'll be waiting forever. The longer you hold on to the fantasy that someone or something will come fix your life, the longer you stay trapped, because dependency kills drive. And when you think someone else holds the key to your future, you never learn to break the damn door down yourself. But here's the twist. That brutal truth is also your greatest freedom. Because if no one's coming to save you, then everything is on you. And that means you're in full control. That means you don't have to wait for approval or timing or someone else's validation. That means you can decide right now to do it without support, without applause, without anyone believing in you. And that's what makes you dangerous. When a man realizes he doesn't need saving, he becomes unstoppable. He stops waiting. He stops begging. He starts building. He becomes his own source of power. You want to win in life? Stop outsourcing responsibility. Stop blaming your past. Stop pointing fingers at the system, at your family, at your environment. It's not fair. We know. Now what? You think successful people had it easy? You think they were born into clarity and confidence? No, they were born into chaos just like you. The difference, they owned it. They used it. They didn't waste time feeling sorry for themselves. They turned their pain into power, their trauma into fuel, and their solitude into self-reliance. You have everything you need. You might not have money. You might not have connections. You might not even know the next, but you've got breath. You've got hunger. You've got the internet. That's more than enough. What you're lacking isn't tools, it's self-leadership. The courage to stand up and say, if it's gonna happen, I'm the one who has to make it happen. That's what separates winners from watchers. Not talent, not luck, not background, just the willingness to take full ownership, even when it hurts, even when it's lonely. Because the truth is, no one can save you better than you. No one knows your pain like you do. No one knows your vision like you do. And no one's going to execute for you. That's your job. That's your privilege. It's not something to fear. It's something to rise into. Because when you finally take the reins of your own life, you stop being a victim and start becoming a force. Most people will never do this. They'll keep looking outward for answers. They'll keep waiting for someone to say, now is the time. But that moment never comes. Because the real time is the moment you decide to act like the hero you've been waiting for. And if you can become that man, if you can step into that power, then no setback, no rejection, no failure will ever break you again. Because you won't be depending on anyone else to carry you. You'll have your own back. You'll know your strength. And most importantly, you'll be free.
Your first step will be ugly, and that's exactly why it's necessary. Everyone wants to start clean. Everyone wants to start perfect. You want your first video to go viral, your first business to print cash, your first gym session to feel powerful. You want the beginning to feel like the reward, when in reality, the beginning is the sacrifice. And it has to be. That first step is supposed to be messy. It's supposed to be awkward. It's supposed to be uncomfortable, uncertain, and at times even embarrassing. That's the price of entry. That's the rite of passage. Because if it were easy, if it were polished from day one, everybody would be doing it. But they're not. You know why? Because they're too proud to look stupid for a season. They want the destination, but they refuse the journey. And that's where most people lose. Not at step 100. At step 1, your first step will feel out of rhythm. You'll feel like an imposter. Your voice will shake. Your body will resist. You'll question yourself with every move. And that's how you know it's real. That's how you know you're doing something your future self will thank you for. Growth doesn't show up looking pretty. It shows up as resistance. It shows up as pain. It shows up as chaos. If you're waiting for the perfect moment to start, you've already lost. Because perfection isn't the beginning. It's the reward for starting. When things were broken, you'll have people laugh at you. They'll doubt you. They'll screenshot you. They'll whisper behind your back. Let them. That silence you feel when no one's watching. That tension you feel when the results don't show yet. That friction inside your chest. when you question if it's even worth it, that's the process of separation. That's where winners are made. Not when it's easy, but when it's ugly. When it's raw, when it's honest. The ones who push through that, they become unstoppable. Because they understand something the rest of the world refuses to admit. Everything beautiful starts out ugly. Your role in this life isn't to impress, it's to build. And building starts with broken bricks. You learn through doing, through failing, through tripping over your own potential, and getting back up. If you try to skip that, if you wait until things are perfect, you'll be standing still for years while others pass you by. Because they were willing to suck before they got good. They were willing to bleed before they got strong. They were willing to be seen trying, failing, correcting, and trying again. That first step is where you're reborn. That's where the old you dies, and the real you begins. It won't feel good, but it will feel real. And that's all you need. Don't let your pride block your progress. Don't let the fear of judgment stop your evolution. You weren't made to look polished. You were made to grow. And the only way to grow is to get in the arena, take the hit, and keep swinging. Let it be ugly. Let it be uncomfortable. Let it be human. Because the man who dares to move first, despite the mess, is the one who builds momentum while the rest keep watching. There's power in movement, even bad movement. Because motion creates clarity. Action rewires belief. One step gives you something that no book, no course, no podcast ever will experience. And experience is the greatest mentor of all. Let the world mock your first move. Let them laugh at your beginning. Just don't let that noise be louder than your calling. Because that calling is waiting. But only for the ones who dare to look foolish long enough to become dangerous. Overthinking is just procrastination in a suit. You think you're being smart. You think that by analyzing every angle, by planning every detail, by weighing every outcome, you're setting yourself up for success. You're not. You're stalling. You're dressing fear up as logic. Overthinking isn't intelligence. It's fear disguised as productivity. It feels like you're doing something, but you're doing nothing. You're spinning the wheels without moving the car. And what's worse, you're convincing yourself that it's noble, that it's responsible, that it's necessary. But it's not. It's just another form of running from the action that actually moves the needle. The mind loves to stay safe. It's wired to avoid risk. And overthinking gives it the perfect excuse. What if it doesn't work? What if people judge me? What if I fail? You build scenarios in your head, stacking hypothetical outcomes so high that you forget the only outcome that matters is the one you actually create. You don't need another strategy. You need courage. Because the man who takes imperfect action always beats the one who's still planning a perfect one. Every time your thoughts can either be tools or traps. When you overthink, they become prison. They lock you inside a loop where no action is ever good enough. No plan ever feels solid. No move ever seems safe. And while you sit there debating step 1, someone else is already on step 7. Not because they're smarter, but because they refuse to be paralyzed by what if. They made decisions fast. They adjusted along the way. They figured it out in the game, not in their head. You want to know the truth? The guy who overthinks every decision is usually just scared of accountability. If he never moves, he never risks failure. If he never tries, he never has to confront the fact that maybe he's not as ready as he thought. So he hides behind the wall of thought. He builds excuses that sound intelligent. He keeps reworking the same plan, hoping that somehow clarity will strike like lightning. But clarity doesn't strike. It follows commitment. You don't get confidence and then act. You act, and through action, confidence is built. Every second you spend debating is a second you could have spent doing. Every hour you spend planning is an hour you could have spent building. The man you want to become won't arrive through thought. He arrives through motion, through trial, through learning the hard way, through jumping before everything feels safe. And once you realize that, once you accept that action is the cure to doubt, your whole life will change. Stop glorifying thought and start respecting action. You're not smarter because you hesitate. You're not more mature because you delay. You're just afraid. And it's time to admit, because once you do, you can finally begin. You can finally step out of the loop and into your life, into your mission, into the pain and beauty of real progress. The hardest part isn't building a business, changing your body, or pursuing a dream. The hardest part is silencing the mental noise that says, wait just a little longer. That noise is not your ally. It's the voice of the weaker version of you, trying to survive. And the only way to silence it is to act right now, not when it feels right, not when it's all lined up, but now. In the tension, in the mess, in the uncertainty, because that's where real power is born. You will never think your way into the life you want. You have to act your way into it. Thought without action is cowardice in disguise. The man you're trying to become isn't in your head. He's built through the steps you take while everyone else is still thinking.
You don't need more information. You don't need another YouTube video. You don't need one more voice telling you to move. You already know what you need to do. You've known it for a long time. But you've been letting fear wear a suit and tie, convincing you that it's logic, convincing you that overanalyzing is progress. It's not. It's paralysis. It's death with a smile. The man you're supposed to become isn't waiting on motivation. He's waiting on movement. He's waiting on you to make one imperfect decision, one bold step forward. And the question now is simple. How much longer are you going to wait to become him? Because nothing in your life changes until you change. Nothing moves until you move. So stop thinking, start doing, take that first step, and never look back.